communication device, if you'd be kind enough to put it on silent or vibrate, we'd appreciate that courtesy. We always begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then would ask you to remain standing for a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing, and we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you all very much. Vanessa, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Sinotto?
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Here.
Commissioner Vogler?
Here. We have a quorum. Does everyone have an agenda? Looks like we all do. Under item D, I'll note that we allow, during our course of our public meeting, we have two opportunities for public comment. One in just a few moments, and then one before we adjourn. We welcome your comments. We ask that they be related to county government matters. And you're welcome to speak both times. You're welcome to speak one of the two, or if you just want to speak or just want to observe, that's equally fine. Also, if you do have comments out of respect for everybody's schedule, we would respectfully ask you try to limit your comments to about 5 minutes if you're able to. Next on the agenda would be row officer reports and comments. We put this on the agenda in the event that any of our other elected row officers have anything they wish to bring up. And today I'm noticing that we have none in the audience. So we'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. And if you just raise your hand, I'll call on you. For the record, we need to have your name. And but again, you're welcome to talk now, or you're welcome to talk before we adjourn. Mrs. Butchie, good morning.
Good morning. So for those who don't know me, I'm a lifelong resident of Lawrence County. I'm a township supervisor in Neshannock Township, and I have been an employee at Neshannock for 37 years. So what I'm here to talk about today is, and this is my second time to have this conversation. I spoke about it last year as well. I see on your agenda that you have ordinance number 1 of 2024 is back up for being tabled and further review and voted on at a public meeting on January 30th, 2024. I just want to come and voice my opinion, and I believe I speak for a lot of people in this room, maybe some of the supervisors that are here. And I know that a lot of the residents who have heard my viewpoints I've had one person comment that they are totally against this $5 per year. Everyone else that I've spoken to has been in favor of it. And I know that it's enacted in 27 counties in Pennsylvania. And I do know that it's been repealed in 2 of them. I actually called both of these counties to find out why it was repealed. I ended up with an employee in the controller's office, and they're both advising me they believe that it was more of a political reason it was repealed as opposed to people not wanting it. It was more people, didn't want to have to pay $5. On that note, I'm going to show you I have my registration here for one of my vehicles, and it's $5 a year that I pay. And on that $5 a year for the one vehicle, it's less than 42 cents a month for that registration. But 100% of this money in Lawrence County, at least what I have been told by the commissioners that have been here since it was enacted in, I believe, 2021, that 100% of that money has gone to local use on township roads. Let me give you an idea of what it costs a township to do a road. For anybody that's familiar with Neshannock Township, we have one road, Valley Road, that runs from Maitland Lane, which is a state highway, to Mercer Road, which is a state highway. It's approximately 3 miles, and that road cost us $587,000 to do, one road in our township. We could not afford to do it all in 1 year, because if you try to do one road in a community at one time, the residents don't want to see that happen. So we try to do a variety of roads that need work on them. We phased it over 3 years. And again, without that local use money, we received $50,000 each year went towards that project. And again, if you don't apply for the money, I understand you're not gonna miss it. But if you've applied for it every year since it's been enacted, you are gonna miss it. In Neshannock Township, we get about $387,000 in liquid fuels tax from the state of Pennsylvania. We get that from, gas tax. And every year we've watched it go from about $400 and some thousand now down to about $387,000. Some small municipalities might be thrilled to get $387,000. In Neshannock, last year we paved about 7 roads. It was $1.1 million that we did in paving. That $50,000 plus the 2 applications that we applied for liquid fuels money from the county as well, gave us $150,000. We were able to do not quite the balance of Valley Road last year with that money. The balance of Valley Road ran us $189,000 last year. So technically the county funds that we applied for between the registration money through Act 89 and the liquid fuels money paid for 1 road in Neshannock. If that goes away and we have to increase taxes because that is our only means in a township to get additional revenue. On an average home, we're going to have to raise the millage 0.20 of a mill. And that is going to cost the resident $45 as opposed to $5 a year on a registration tax or I shouldn't call it a tax, a registration user fee. And that is to use the roads in our community. And I believe that it had to be enacted with the idea that it was going to help local municipalities when it was enacted. I wasn't here at the county when you actually enacted it. I was here last year for another reason, and it came up that it was going to be repealed. So I voiced my concerns. Let's see, what else do I want to say to you? I just feel that, our costs have gone up year after year. The paving costs are up over 40% in townships. Yes, we get our own liquid fuels money, but we also have to run our police departments, our sewer departments, our fire departments, our clerical, our parks and recreation, whatever we have to do has to come out of the taxes that we pass along to our residents. This was just, I would say it was a bonus to our county that Lawrence County passed this ordinance. And I know that there's people that don't care for it. And something else I wanted to point out. So 1 vehicle, for less than 42 cents a month. If I own 5 vehicles, it's less than $2.08 a month. If I own 10 vehicles, it's $4.17 a month. And I think, I've heard that, there's a lot of people out there that have, big fleets that they own or classical cars, and they don't want to pay this money. I have to assume, and it's just my assumption, no one else's, that if you can afford 10 vehicles, you can afford $50 a year in those registrations. And I just think that it's just a small amount. And when I see what people waste, and I said this last year, at Dunkin' Donuts daily, or Sheets or wherever, it's 42 cents a month is all that registration's costing you if you have 1 vehicle. And I just think that it's in the 27 municipalities in Lawrence County's best interest if you, the Board of Commissioners, will continue to keep this user ordinance in place. And I respectfully ask, on behalf of the Neshannock Township residents, we are a community that has one of the largest assessments in your county, that you keep this ordinance in place with Act 89 and not repeal it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Butchie.
Thank you.
Is anyone else? Mr. McKinley?
I'm Grant McKinley. I'm from North Beaver Township, and I run the road crew, and I'm also a supervisor. And I have to agree with what Leslie said. if you take North Beaver's roads and you take the residents, I've had one or two people question me about this. I'll call it a tax. But, and I've explained to them, well, we have 5 municipalities that come to our school. And I said, we're increasing our electric vehicles in the township. I said, this is something that's equal for everyone. And if put this in perspective, for less than 2 gallons of gas is what you're saying for $5. You couldn't even travel all the roads if your vehicle got 30 miles of the gallon in North Beaver Township. So what you're going to save or what you're going to look good for taking the $5 off, you're actually going to cost residents in North Beaver Township because we use this money. I could show you where we've used it. We've been grateful to Dan and previous commissioners for giving it to us. It's our money, but they've let us in return use it when we apply for it. It's just something that's good for the township. It's good for Lawrence County. And for less than 2 gallons of gas a year, I've got 8 vehicles and 3 trailers. I pay it. I pay it. Should I get rid of a vehicle? Maybe. I'm not down to $5. I know some people are struggling, but I think we have enough community accessibility to ACTS buses and so forth that they can get it. So that's all I have to say. Please keep it on.
Thank you, Mr. McKinley. Mrs. Burchett?
My question is, what's the reason for bringing up this repeal?
Well, I'll give you some brief history in answering your question. As was noted, about 11 years ago, the state legislature passed a law that the governor signed that gave counties the option of implementing a $5 fee on all registered vehicles within the borders of those particular counties. And over the course of the last 11 years, as was noted, and my numbers might be a little bit off, but approximately 25 or 26 municipalities or counties have adopted this $5 fee. Approximately 41 have chosen not to, and there have been 2 or 3 that initially enacted the fee and then rescinded it. They took it off. Back in 2020, we had 2 new commissioners come on board. Prior to that, the board that I had served with Mr. Craig and Mr. Del Signor, we chose not to implement a $5 fee. When the 2 new board members came on, they were supportive of the fee, and they voted. It was a 2-to-1 vote. I voted against it, but it was implemented in 2020. Last year, I placed on the agenda a proposed ordinance to rescind it. And I was outvoted again. It was 2-to-1 vote, majority rules. And we now have a new board, and it's now being brought up for consideration. Mrs. Butchie is correct. Because it's an ordinance, it was legally advertised, I believe, last Saturday in the paper. And the role that we have today is simply to introduce it. Our solicitor has advised us we cannot vote on it today. It has to be introduced and tabled, assuming enough votes are here to do just that. And then the final vote will be taken a week from today. It's been noted that in Lawrence County, the county government does not own or maintain any roads or streets. The roads and streets in our county are either maintained and owned by the boroughs and townships of the city of Newcastle or PennDOT. The county does own and maintain 27 bridges. And back about, prior to about 2012, 2013, it was very simple. The county got each year 1 liquid fuel allocation from the state. And each year we would sit down with our county engineers, Frank D. Taylor Engineering, and we would review their estimates for what it was going to cost us to inspect, maintain, and in some instances replace the bridges that we own. In some years, there were dollars left over. And we would then allocate those remaining dollars to the municipalities who would apply for those funds. And by the way, that predates me. I can take it back as far as at least the 1950s when that process was being done. So it's a long-standing process. But about 10 or 12 years ago, the legislature created a couple of different funding streams of liquid fuel dollars and Marcellus shale dollars that are now earmarked to counties specifically for our bridges. And what that's enabled us to do, it's enabled us to take the original liquid fuel dollars that have been in existence for decades, and in most years, we've been able to allocate those additional dollars to the municipalities who have applied for them. Because prior to that, there were some years when the bridge expenses that we had took up all of our funding and we weren't able to make allocations to the municipalities. But in the past decade, I think by and large, we've been able to do that. Now, I want to note the process. Each year we send correspondence, both in hard copy and in an email, to all 27 municipalities, giving them the opportunity to apply for the funds. Some municipalities apply every year. They're consistent. Some, it's hit and miss, and we have a couple that have never applied. They've chosen not to apply for the liquid fuel dollars. The folks who have spoken so far are correct. If this $5 fee is removed, it would reduce the amount of dollars coming from the county to the municipalities. It would not eliminate that. In fact, I anticipate within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll send another letter out to municipalities asking them to apply for liquid fuel dollars, so that the spigot would not be turned off. Will it be scaled back? Yes, it will. But municipalities will continue to be able to apply for those liquid fuel dollars. I hope that answers your question. I apologize for taking so long to answer it. Mr. Sonata?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I want to give you a little history of acting. November 21st, 2013, the state legislature and the House passed this piece of legislation. This provision is part of a bigger piece of legislation. The gasoline tax increase in Pennsylvania, 30 cents a gallon, with an inflation clause that caused it to go up to 35 cents a gallon, which added all these other fees on people's registrations. I was in the legislature. I was against it then, not against it now. I remember that day when all the special interest groups came to Harrisburg and their lobbyists, the lobby that made us the highest gas tax in the country, the highest gas tax in the country. Now we're second, I believe, behind California. And this was one of the other provisions where in that provision back in 2015. I remember that day well. Governor Tom Corbett signed that gas tax increase on November 25th, 2013. It's been 11 years. To this day, people still see it. Take a ride to Ohio, 30, 40 cents a gallon difference in the price of gasoline. That affects rural counties such as Lawrence County, not the urban areas, rural counties. People drive to work every day. They have to pay it. Some of our residents cross the line to buy their gasoline. But that's what it comes down to. This is what this is about. Act 89. 35 cents a gallon with that inflation clause. I remember it well. I was one of the people who argued against it back then. And it galls me every time I go past the gas pump and see what happened. When the big lobbyists and all their friends pushed this legislation. And let me assure you, and I'll have comments next week as well, they're not done. They're not done. Their next venture is going to be a mileage tax. Watch. They're already planning now, behind the scenes, to go after people's vehicles. And I will be just as vigilant when they try a mileage tax, as I was with this 35 cent a gallon gasoline tax, and all these extra fees and everything. And as Commissioner Vogler says, the county doesn't own one road in Lawrence County. We don't own one road. We own bridges. That's our responsibility. We have different levels of government, and every level of government has to take their responsibility of what they do. And I hear that residents support this. That's great. A township can send a letter to their residents asking for their $5 per vehicle. And if there's that many in your township that support this, they're going to send you a personal check toward this clause. But why should we be the ones forcing them to do it? I mean,
Leslie, Mr. McKinley had his hand up. and I'll-
So
Have
respectfully,
you next?
most of our residents already go to Ohio to buy their gas. And so we're not getting that liquid fuels money. So if you dry up this other $50,000, $60,000 that comes from Lawrence County as a registration tax, where are you going to get the money to do this? How are we going to maintain our roads? And then the next respectful question that I have for you is, with the increase of electric vehicles, they're not paying any taxes. Where do we get that money? They still travel our roads, and I can count a dozen or 2 dozen to go past North Beaver Township every day. Where is that money coming? They use the roads just like I use the roads. Those are my two questions.
Senator McKinley,
Thank you.
that's an issue that has to be addressed by the legislature. When I talk about the mileage tax on gasoline powered vehicles, okay, they have to come up with a solution for electric powered vehicles, because right now they're paying nothing. And they do need to get money for those vehicles, especially as they keep growing. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not there. But they have to deal with that. And I know they tried to deal with that last term I was there, to put a fee on electric vehicles. So they will pay their share of roads in which they're taking care of. So I think that's very important. And I think that has to be addressed. When I talk about the plans about going after vehicles, those are gas powered vehicles.
But respectfully,
Yeah.
sir, until they have that in place and you take that money away from us, where to replace that, where's it coming from?
We're not taking it away. I mean, this is money you should have never had. Okay?
No, but you are taking it.
We have had it. We've had it for years now. So you are taking it away.
It's previously budgeted.
Now you have a new board.
Let's all
Okay.
take our turn talking. Appreciate that. Mrs. Butchie, you had your hand up, and then the lady to your right will be next.
So we all understand you don't own the roads. We know that we own them. We have 69 miles, in excess of 69 miles of roads in Neshannock Township to maintain. But when this got implemented and 100% of this money came to the municipalities, what is your reason to remove it other than you don't agree with the law, but the legislation, the state, and the governor passed it? Whether you voted for it or not, I know you voted against it, because I did check that. You did vote against it, but it's a benefit to our communities and to our residents. I just don't understand. I understand that you don't have to maintain roads. You have bridges to maintain. But there's federal funding out there for that, and we have applied for that as well when we've gone for the 2 bridges that are in Neshannock that we had to replace. But it's in place. To repeal it, there has to be a specific reason. Like, why do you want to repeal it? I mean, it's 100% of this money, from what I've been told, unless I have this wrong. I understand it's around $400,000. 100% of this money is going back onto the roads in Lawrence County. So if you're helping us, and I get you don't have to, but you're taking it away and you're saying it's because you should have never had it. Well, someone somewhere along the line came along with a plan to say Act 89 is going to help the municipalities if your counties implement it. If your counties don't implement it, you're never going to have the opportunity. It happened here. It was November 25th of 2013, and our county implemented it in 2021. And I get you have the right to do that, but we're respectfully asking you to not do that, because, something you don't have to do is plow the snow, okay? It's $60 a ton for salt right now. If you're using anti-skid, you got that cost on top of it. You've got guys coming out in the middle of the night road. Before they're ever even done plowing roads, we're getting the phone calls that the roads are falling apart. We have a tough state for roads. California might be a little different. Our roads get hammered with salt. We've got potholes. We get complaints continually about that. So we've got to keep, not only are we paving these roads, but we're repairing these roads. So how many times a year do you rent a hot box?
4 or 5.
How many times do I yell at you about a hot box,
4 or
Mr.
5.
Gerlach? So we're renting hot boxes to fill the holes in these roads before we can even pave them. And I know I've taken probably more time than I should, but I just respectfully ask that on behalf of the residents of Lawrence County, not just Neshannock Township, that you keep this in place so that 100% of this use can go towards the roads. And what better place to get the money from, but from the people that are driving across our roads?
I'll second that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Virginia Zenza, Pulaski Township Supervisor. Allow me to express, I just want to add to what Ms. Gucci and Mr. McKinley said. They said it beautifully, but I want to express my opinion that the state of Lawrence County roads, especially in heavily Amish-driven areas, the road conditions are subpar and really can't be boasted about. We live in an area with the weather and the salt in the Amish parties. Takes a lot of maintenance for these townships. In light of repealing this $5 tax, the county is going to lose a revenue of over $400,000 from the vehicle registration fee, which will only aggravate this situation. Pulaski Township received roughly $70,000 last year from the county, which greatly helped fund much needed culvert projects throughout our township. Which is ongoing problem in Pulaski, if you're not aware. With this loss, the only way that we would be able to gain that revenue would be to increase taxes to offset that. And that would not only greatly impact homeowners, but our elderly and disabled who rent, because that would also raise their rent as well. So I implore you to reconsider repealing the $5 vehicle registration fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zenza. Appreciate that. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Bill Hepler, Supervisor for Wayne Township. In the last couple of years, we've gotten assistance from the commission to replace roads, 2 bridges. If it wasn't for them with this money, we'd still have road closed signs up on 2 roads because we couldn't afford it to replace those bridges with what we get in taxes. Now, granted, this may not stop us from raising taxes. If you take that away, I don't know what we're going to do. And on the other hand, every resident that I see out, I'll ask them, what do you think of this $5 that you pay for your license plate? Oh, I hate it. The state gets enough from the gas and the cigarettes and everything. They don't even know this comes back to the township. As soon as I tell them it does, they don't have a problem with it. So a lot of people aren't informed, and you shouldn't vote on something until everybody's informed, or at least more people. I'm in favor of you keeping this. I'm quite sure most of my residents will say the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Hepler.
So thank you.
Mr. Burek.
Hi, Al Burek, Shenango Township Manager. Hi, guys. I'm here to talk about what everyone else is talking about, obviously. The supervisor sent me, all 3 are in favor of keeping this fee on. This is our transportation improvement plan for the next 8 years. So we have everything in writing and we have a full plan, and our total plan would cost $3,074,000 over the next 7 years to do. Right now, we receive a little over $300,000 a year from liquid fuel that covers all of our salt costs, any other material we buy for backing up roads, and then all of our paving projects. So obviously, we can't do this. We can't complete this plan without dipping into our general fund expenses. Our general fund, and when we do that, it's going to require us to raise taxes. This year alone, our projects are estimated at $325,000. we get 303,000 from liquid fuels. I'm required to buy 1,220 tons of road salt from liquid fuels as well this year, because the state requires us to buy 60% of what we forecast. Unfortunately, we can forecast a whole year in advance, so a nice warm winter doesn't affect us in our pricing, because we're already looking at next year's, have to have everything in by next month for next year's bidding. So I know I sort of got off track there, but we are, if we don't keep this fee on, we're gonna have to start cutting roads from our paving project. Dan, you'll know, 10 years ago, the roads in Shenango Township were less than good. We spent $4.5 million over the last 10 years on the roads, and we still need to spend $3 million more over the next 7 years. We were lucky; we sold our sanitation system, and we had an extra $2 million to put towards our roads. But that's not going to happen. There's no more sanitation systems to sell for Shenango Township. So that's the position we're in right now, and I really implore you guys to reconsider and keep this user vehicle fee on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burek. Mr. Eckert.
Rob Eckert, Union Township Supervisor. Just want to mimic the same thing pretty much as everybody else. You know, I'm not going to go into exact numbers, I guess, but the plain and simple is, you know, we need the money. Anything you cut hurts, you know, especially once you're used to having it. So we also would ask that you please keep the tax.
Thank you, sir. Forgive me, Leslie. Mr. Swagger.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Kevin Swagger, Borough Manager in Elwood City. We apply for those liquid fuel funds as well. We have, you know, worked on several roads here in the borough, from vehicle traffic, heavy trucks, salt, and stuff like that. So we utilize those liquid fuel money that we apply for every year to fix the roads. So we would imply that you keep it the $5 fee as well.
Thank you, Mr. Swagger. Leslie, give me 1 second. I'm going to have Mr. Burchett, and I'll call on you.
Sure.
Mr. Burchett.
Okay, Bob Burchett. I'm outnumbered here. I'm an ordinary taxpayer, all right? The ordinary taxpayers are kind of fed up with paying taxes, all right? And this is the one item that they can do something about. They can voice their opinion. They might be wrong with the voicing of their opinion, but they do pay that big, high tax on gasoline. And somehow people used to say, oh, I gave it the office. Well, I gave it the gas pump, all right? And I had a trailer. I think the cost of the trailer was $12, but they put an extra $5 on that. And so that was a big jump on the price of a trailer to do. But I did sell one car, so I saved $15 instead of $5. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Butchie, and then I'll go to Mr. Barth.
This will be my last thing. I just wanted to mention when Mr. Burek was mentioning about the things that come out of our liquid fuels money, all townships that own traffic signals in Lawrence County also have to pay for those. We pay for the electric, for all of the traffic signals, whether we put them in or not. It might be vendors or businesses that put those traffic signals in, but we're obligated to pay the electric bills on those. We also are required by PennDOT to have maintenance agreements for all of those traffic signals, which we have to pay monthly, quarterly, whatever. So like in our case, Neshannock doesn't have a lot of traffic signals. Union, Shenango, you probably have a lot more than I do to worry about. But in our instance, like even on state roads, we maintain those, and we're looking at least $12,000 just in the electric and the maintenance contract. That's not if we have to correct something to those traffic signals. We just put a traffic signal in. It was $257,000 for the traffic signal. That's on the municipalities. We either have to find money, we have to go for grants, which we have done as a municipality to get, but a portion of that has to be matched by the municipalities. And again, and I think as Mr. Burchett said, we actually are all taxpayers. And I'm a very average taxpayer in the community, but if my taxes have to go up in order to compensate for additional road paving Because one of the biggest complaints we get in Neshannock is my road isn't great. I need my road fixed. How come you paved that guy's road, but you didn't pave this guy's road? We did a comprehensive plan and we went out for a survey to all of the residents in Neshannock. Some people answered, some people didn't. The people that answered, one of their biggest complaints was the condition of the roads. And I always thought our roads were in fairly decent shape. And last year we did, like I said, $1.1 million worth of paving. And it still obviously wasn't enough because that comprehensive plan survey went out in 2023. So even after paving in 2023, we still didn't meet the needs of the residents. So again, the registration amount, if it goes away, that's $400,000 that would be 100% going into Lawrence County roads. Thank you again, and I respectfully appreciate the job you have to do because I know it's not easy.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Mr. Barth.
Scott Barth, North Beaver Township Supervisor. And I may have missed it, Dan, but how did this come up again? Did somebody, one of you three, bring it up? Or why is it coming back up again? Why couldn't we just leave it?
When it was first implemented in 2020, one of my former colleagues placed it on the agenda for consideration. And at that point, it was approved by a 2-to-1 vote.
Correct.
Last year, a new commissioner came on board. I placed the issue on the agenda to rescind it. And my proposal to rescind was defeated by a 2-to-1 vote. We have 2 new commissioners, and one of our new commissioners has asked to place this on the agenda.
Which one?
Mr. Sonata. And that's how, when we formulate and put together our weekly agenda, each commissioner has every opportunity to say, I want this to be considered. And we put it in the form, usually in the form of a resolution. Now, in this case, it's an ordinance, which is why we have to take a couple extra steps. But any commissioner, any of the 3 of us can put any proposal on the agenda, and then we bring it up and we discuss it, and we take a vote. More often than not, and I'm sure it's the case in your respective municipalities, more often than not, our votes are unanimous because our things we vote on are pretty mundane and pretty non-controversial. But there are times when we do have differences of viewpoints, and this is one of them. And as I said, I've been on the low end of the vote a couple of times, and that's okay. The majority rules, and I respect that fact. But that's the process that we follow, and I hope that answers your question.
So if we have to raise taxes, can we put your name on it then?
Yeah, because Elwood City's gonna have to raise taxes.
No, I don't think you have to raise taxes.
Because we'll send a postcard.
You have to make a decision. You have so much money to spend, you have to live within your means. You have to decide. Okay? You can pave every road in this country if you want, but you have to raise taxes to do it.
We can send a postcard out with a
Have,
picture.
and you have to spend
We will
wisely.
raise taxes.
We are not at that point. That's a decision you will make.
Well,
If you want to raise it, you
Because
follow.
we're losing the funds.
But let me tell you, we are going to do everything we can not to raise taxes in the county. And that's my goal. I didn't raise taxes at the state level, and I'm not coming here to raise taxes.
We're gonna
We
have.
will be.
Have to raise
And
taxes.
you are going to make a decision.
This
Like
is
you said,
already-
you may pave one less road. We're still going to give you money, as Commissioner Vogler said.
This is not a tax.
No, it's not.
It is.
It will.
It will be. We'll send a postcard out saying.
Let's
That's your choice.
we'll maintain a little bit of order here, and I appreciate that you've all raised your hands when you want to speak. I think Mr. Gearlock and then Mr. Oviel. Joe?
Joe Gerlach, Shannon Township Supervisor. What is your personal reason, Dan and Chris, for taking this off the table when you already saw it on the table?
Oh, no.
And it's helped everybody.
What-
You can hear what makes you want to take it off the
Why,
agenda
why I want to rescind
Yes.
it?
personally?
Because I was against it from the get-go.
For what reason?
Because the fact remains that we are still getting liquid fuel money coming into the county.
Still not enough.
And,
Sorry.
well, then it's the best we can do. We've consistently provided funds to the municipalities. Once our responsibility has been assured as it relates to the integrity of our bridges, that's our responsibility, as was noted. Your responsibility are the roads and bridges in your municipality. Primary responsibility that we have are those 27 bridges. And in most years, there have been dollars left over. And in most years, we've been able to allocate those dollars to each of you who have applied. That will not cease. That will continue. And I hear what you're all saying about the fact that it's $400,000 that's being used for roads. What I look at is, where's it coming from? It's coming from the taxpayers' wallets.
Use the roads.
But who are already paying a gasoline tax to do so, who are already paying real estate taxes in your municipalities, who are already paying wage taxes in your municipalities.
But again, we have to, and I apologize, but I feel like I'm talking to you. Dan and I, Commissioner Vogler and I worked together. He was a supervisor who had to maintain roads in a community as well before he stepped into the commissioner position. And in all fairness, one way or another, either you keep this here, the $400,000, and it goes to local use, or I raise taxes on everybody. There's some people who don't have vehicles, and I have heard from them as well. Those people aren't paying it at all. Okay, so if this $400,000 goes away, we raise tax on everybody in order to compensate that. And we're fortunate in Neshannock, we have the largest assessment in Lawrence County. You benefit from that, and so do I in Neshannock Township. And in all fairness, the county gets a large portion of their tax revenue to run off of out of Neshannock Township and all of these people sitting in this room. It's just when it's here and you already have it to help these people or help us on our roads, we just can't understand the reason to take it away. I just think that it's a poor decision on behalf of the taxpayers. We were fortunate last year. We all reached out to Brian Burek, who was the new commissioner, standing in for Morgan Boyd, and he changed his mind. It was a 2-to-1 vote to keep the ordinance in place. Commissioner Sonato, what's your reason for personally repealing it?
It's the principle. I'm going
What's
into
the principle?
What's the principle?
I opposed it as a legislator, I opposed it as a commissioner. Number one, when we talk about the numbers, every municipality has different numbers in it. So why is the largest municipality theoretically the city of Newcastle? So it's pretty much subsidizing most of the county. That's where the cars are at, the city of Newcastle, which is the poorest municipality in Lawrence County. If you actually break it down. So, we're giving you money, probably more than some communities should be getting. So how do you break it down for that? But it's $5. It's not a lot of money, but it's still the principle. People are tired. They're tired of all these taxes. They're nickel and dime here, they're nickel and dime there. For me, it's the principle of the matter. I said it, I've always said it, I opposed it then, I opposed it now. I wasn't a commissioner last year.
Respectfully, I just don't agree with you.
I respect your opinion, I respect all your opinions, and, we'll be working with you on other, and as Commissioner Vogler said, we still have the fuel money. But number one,
We know that.
that's our priority is to fix the bridges. If it's extra, we want to give it to all you guys to try to help your municipalities. And these are decisions, you're elected officials as well. Everyone has to make decisions. You run for office. My job is to take care of the county, the whole county, every municipality in that county, at the county level. We don't own the roads. And actually, there's 3 of them that repealed it. Cambria County just repealed it in December.
That wasn't on the fact.
I just found that.
Luzerne County and Fulton County were the 2 on the fact sheet.
It's worked well in 44 other counties. And I'm sorry that they passed this last time. And, I wasn't here. That was a decision that board made, and we have a new board now. We're gonna be doing things a little bit differently. I'm a fiscal conservative on many spending issues. And I think you'll find that out over the next 4 years. I'm not here to hand out money to everybody. Number one, we have a responsibility to balance our budget up here. I'm going to look at every program which we're doing to see which is being run efficiently and which isn't. I know last year was a great year. They gave out millions and millions of dollars. Those are taxpayer dollars. If it wasn't for the RIPA money, where would you all be? Including the county and the municipalities. But I wasn't here. All that money that was given away, unfortunately, we don't have that money anymore. we're gonna, we have to be prepared. We have issues at the courthouse we're gonna be dealing with. So I'm just giving you my perspective. For me, it's based on this.
Thank you, Mr. Sonata. Mr. McKinley.
There's only 2 points that I'd like to bring up. When you take care of a county bridge, that's generally on a 100-year plan. When we take care of a road, that's generally on a 3-year plan. So keep that in consideration. Okay, and the other thing is we don't have toll booths, whereas if you're a North Beaver resident, you get to come in for free and a Newcastle resident gets to pay. Like I said before, we have 5 different municipalities going to Mohawk Area School District. Every one of the 5 gets to travel our roads for free, except for this $5 tax. Their local taxes go to their local governments. What they do with their money, yes, I agree with that. But we're not ones to put up toll bridges and say, no, you're from Newcastle, you can't come to North Beaver Township because you didn't pay this tax. You didn't take care of this road. We don't have that opportunity. This is something as a county-wide that it's an equal and fair tax. It's like a per capita tax. If you have 10 kids or a dozen or 1 kid or no kids, school tax is probably the worst, because I've had great aunts that have taught school in Mount Jackson and surrounding areas that had no children. They still paid school tax. They paid for my children to go through. I'm paying for someone else's children. That's how it works. But just keep it in mind, your bridges are on a 100-year plan. Our roads are on a 3-year plan. So, and I understand, gentlemen, it's a tough decision.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ovio, I may have passed over you.
A couple times, but that's okay.
I apologize.
I'm down here IQ wise, so I'm gonna look at it from different things. Mr. Sonato, I agree with you that tax on gas is pathetic, but that's out of our reach and it's done. You're holding a grudge because you lost a vote that you should have won, and it would have helped all of Pennsylvania. So on principle, Mr. Vogler, I don't understand, because you were against it before. Can you change your mind? Because when you hear the people that it's helping, $5, work on the other things with your clout to knock down the crazy taxes. But this one goes directly to the people who use it. We can't count on people in Harrisburg. They're out of touch. They lobbyists are in there left and right. You're the representatives that we can see direct here. You're going to say, if it gets repealed, we didn't raise taxes. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater because you're putting it on the people that you're supposed to look out for in this county. And that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be hit this gentleman and everybody else who doesn't want to pay the $5 are going to pay a heck of a lot more. So I want you to think about that when some of you can walk around. We didn't raise taxes. Yes, you did. You just put it on somebody else. You threw the baby out with the bathwater and you put it on the local municipalities to raise the taxes. And it's going to be higher than what the $5 is. That's what I'm coming at it from that viewpoint. And our roads, because of the trucks and all the traffic, is a pass-through from the turnpike and everywhere else. We don't have the amount of miles as the townships, but guess what? A lot of potholes, a lot of repairs have to be done. So when the people of Elwood, we have to raise taxes, we're going to make sure they have an idea. And that one gentleman was right. Publicize why you're going to take something that works away. I don't get it, but that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Ovio. Other comments or concerns?
Chairman, can I have a comment?
Yes, you may.
As you know, I was a township supervisor up until December 31st of this past year. And there's some notes I put together about this. The only mechanism that the county has to assist you, as they've been saying, is liquid fuel money, except for this. Liquid fuel money to the townships last year was about $215,000. Now in that, I have my list. What we did as a county, $899,100.03. That's liquid fuel and the $5 fee. Out of that, $260,000 come out of liquid fuel money. $639,103 come out of the $4 fee. In every township except for 5 in this county, municipalities, boroughs, and I'll tell you the 5, Boland Borough, they didn't apply for anything. They never have. Scott Township, they don't care. They don't apply for anything either. Taylor Township, South Newcastle Borough, and I'm not 100% sure on this one, but Little Beaver Borough, Little Beaver Township has never applied for anything. That's 5 out of the rest of them. It's needed. You'll hear me vote yes. I have a whole bunch of stuff up here, but I don't need it now because you guys have spoken. I appreciate it. But even our surrounding counties, Allegheny, Erie, Butler, Beaver, they all have this $5 tax. We take it away, you know, that $900,000, you know, how much paving come out of Lindy Paving? Them people live in Orange County. All the paving contractors that you hired, I think you had ProTech, we had Smith, all the employees there, most of them live in Orange County. Them dollars that they get are coming back to Orange County. It's economic development and what we can do. We need this money to help. Leslie, I know you need help on Pulaski Road. That goes to Millennial Park. It's been a nightmare for every one of us. And you want to complain about something, there's something to complain about. It's sitting, not doing nothing. Thank God we got a guy, I think Ben Bush, that's going to work for all of us. And we're going to help him. He needs help on doing that too. And we got to keep this in. It's the only mechanism we have to help you guys out. You know where my vote's at. I don't even have to tell you, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Debbie, I'll be right with you. I'm gonna make probably, I hope, is my only editorial comment. The legislature passed this law and they punted. They punted to us. They passed the buck to the boards of commissioners in the 67 counties in this state. And if I had the proverbial magic wand, which I don't, I wish what they simply would have done was made it applicable statewide. Now that could still happen. We could ask our legislators to consider that, implementing it across the board, but it would be up to our state legislators. But I think it needs to be made clear that they passed the buck and put the burden on us. And as has been noted, some counties have implemented it. So far, a majority of the counties have not. But, and I am sympathetic. I was a township supervisor. I recognize the cost of your asphalt and all the other materials that go into paving. I realize that particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, it's jumped tremendously. But I have to balance that with what I see when people go to the grocery store and what they're having to pay. And those are the taxpayers that I work for. So I struggled with this. But by the same token, I have tried to be consistent in my position. And my position was from the very first day that I was not in support of it. And one thing I've got to be able to do is look myself in the mirror and say, Dan, are you a man of your word? Are you being consistent in your point of view? And in this instance, I have to be. And while we might respectfully disagree, I hope you'll respect that. And again, I want to emphasize, we will still be able to distribute liquid fuel dollars to those municipalities who apply for it. Will it be as much as it has been the last couple of years? No, it won't. But again, that process will still continue. And the good news is basically all of our bridges that we're responsible for are in good order. And we've put a lot of money into our bridges over the years. And that, by doing so, has allowed us to be able to distribute more dollars to the municipalities. Debbie.
Okay, Grant McKinley said this is the only fair and equal tax countywide. But I don't think it's fair and equal, and I have a question about this because I got my registration form yesterday. If you're gonna repeal this tax, do I send that $5 in or do I not? And what about all the people who already paid it within the year? Are you gonna refund theirs?
I don't believe the law, and I'll double check with our
If you don't
solicitor.
refund theirs, it's not fair.
Well, there has to be a cutoff point, and I don't think the law allows for retroactivity, but I will double check.
What do people do when they happen to pay and they haven't paid them yet? Do we wait? Do we send them in?
That has to be,
That $5?
that would have to be your personal decision.
Well, what happens if I don't pay it?
Well, if you don't renew your registration in a timely manner, you won't be able to drive your car.
So if you repeal this in the meantime, do I pay it? And I'm not the only person who's gonna be asking that question. That's why I'm asking. I know it's a personal decision, but I think there's a lot of people who are waiting to see.
Chris, did you have a comment to make? Because if you'll bear with me a minute.
The information on how it feel at Whitestone County.
I apologize. I thought the information I had, maybe Leslie, you had something.
So from Luzerne County, when they repealed it, when they did that, it took them a full year. They had to wait to the following year really to straighten that around because obviously everybody's registration is at a different time.
Right.
And you can't not, obviously if you don't do it, they're gonna send notice out that you don't have a valid registration and somebody's gonna pull you over and ticket you. But my understanding is it took them a full year to straighten out repealing the ordinance because of, it's not like everybody pays this January 1st.
Right.
Some people are in September, some people are, and you can't, because the registration goes out, it went out for a full year like that. And in order for them to straighten that out.
And that would
So
be,
are you saying that even though they repealed it, people still had to pay for it until their next one?
Until their next registration.
Even though it was repealed?
Yeah.
and I believe Mrs. Butchie is correct. I thought I had some information here to that effect. PennDOT requires at least 90 days notice before an assessment is to expire to ensure proper billing for registrations in the county. I hope I'm reading the right section. But let us double check with our solicitor.
Yeah. We would like to know them.
Certainly. Mrs. Burchett.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you stand on principle. I'm a person of principle myself. However, when I do more research and get more information, that sometimes changes my viewpoint. And I was really appreciative of Brian Burek when he was on the board. And he told us how he had investigated and come up with his decision to vote for the $5 registration.
I agree.
Thank you. Mr. Hepler.
Yeah, I got to leave, but I want to thank you for standing up for this, trying to keep her going. Dan, I'm a little disappointed in you that you feel that way. You were the one who brought this to our attention to apply for.
Along with the other liquid fuel
Along
funding,
with other.
what you got was not totally from the $5 fee. There were
No,
other liquid
I
fuel
know, I
dollars.
understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
But Mr. Sonato, if you have $400,000 sitting here and you're gonna you got all this money from liquid fuels, why would you throw this away? And the principle of the thing or common sense.
Return it to the taxpayers.
How's it gonna get there?
How else better to return it to good roads?
Crickets.
How else? I have 4 motorcycles and 2 vehicles. I don't mind paying it. It comes back to the township.
You donated to the township.
Yeah.
Mr. Thank you, Mr. Heffler. Mr. Girlow.
Just are a lot of
You too.
Dan and Chris, I'm just disappointed myself. I've known you for a long time. It's laying there on you. You guys, it seems personal with this thing. Because you can't give a reason, a good sufficient reason. That's my problem.
Thank you. Mr. Eckert.
I think it's just unfortunate that it does seem like, although, initially it's in principle, the Yints are unwilling to take into account the benefits that has provided townships over the year and really take another look at that and changing your decision instead of just basing it off of several years ago, everyone was against it, and not really taking into account what it has done and be willing to change your mind on an issue that's really benefited the townships.
Thank you, sir. Other comments from my colleagues before we move along? Mr. Kennedy, anything else?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all. You're all welcome to stay. If you have to move along, we understand. Thank you. We are down to fiscal and contractual. And in our packets, we have the warrant registers from Controller's Office dated January 12, 16, 18, and 19. Gentlemen, as you look these over, I was hoping to have caught you before the meeting. You're going to see about halfway in, maybe 2/3 of the way in, a couple of sheets with a lot of people's names on them. Those are foster parent payments. If you were wondering what those were, those are payments that CYS makes to the people who are foster parents in our community. So in case you were wondering about that. But let me give you whatever time you would need to look the warrant registers over, and whenever you're ready, I could take a motion to accept.
Couldn't figure out why we're paying all these people. Now it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and again, I should have mentioned this to you sooner. And they come up, is it about every other month, Vanessa or Joe? I think it's monthly. Is it monthly? Okay, so you'll see them periodically. The other thing I believe, you'll notice a number of our municipalities and school districts are on here. If I'm not mistaken, I believe those are from the tax claim office.
That's correct.
Thank you. But please, gentlemen, look them over, and if you have any questions, we'll certainly consider them.
That's when people pay back taxes.
Yes, sir, to Tish's office. She collects them and then distributes them out. We keep our allocated amount, and then each particular municipality and school district get their share.
I move that we accept the motion.
For the warrant register?
Yes.
Chris? Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Any discussions or questions? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes?
motion carries.
Thank you. The minutes of the January 16 meeting are in your packet. I'll give you, gentlemen, whatever time you need to look them over, and whenever you're ready, I could take a motion for us to adopt the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you both, gentlemen. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Mhm.
We move down to one piece of written correspondence that we received in the last week. We'll enter into the record. This is from Mineral Processing Specialties, Inc. It's their New Kensington office. And this is Act 14 notification to inform the commissioners of the intent of Mineral Processing Specialties, Inc., located at 502 East Poland Avenue in the borough of Bessemer. They intend to submit a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit application to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection This is for general stormwater discharges. And this document has been submitted to the DEP's Meadville office. As we've noted in the past, the law requires that we be made aware of these. We have no really jurisdiction over them. And it's also submitted to our planning office for their information and for their records. Gentlemen, would one of you care to make a motion to accept this document?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
If there's questions from either of you? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Commissioner reports and comments. I guess I get to go first, and I'll be brief. I will note that we continue to have a pretty busy schedule, and my two colleagues are going to a lot of meetings and meeting a lot of people, or actually getting better acquainted with a lot of people. Because the nice thing is, they already know a lot of the folks, both here in the courthouse and out in the community. But since we met last week, three of us have had a meeting with Ben Bush at Forward Lawrence. We met last Wednesday with the Mercer County Commissioners. We had a joint get-together for time to sit down with Jill Foys, who's the director of the Northwest Pennsylvania Planning Commission. She shared with us the role and responsibility of that organization. Last Thursday, the three of us were invited to each speak at the County Board of Realtors luncheon meeting that was held at the Confluence. And then just yesterday, the three of us went out to Clarion County. We belong to the Northwest County Commissioners Caucus, which consists of the elected officials, county officials, commissioners specifically, from Northwest Pennsylvania. We move around. And the primary speaker yesterday was Secretary Valerie R. Cush, who's the Secretary of the Department of Human Services, and she's a former Montgomery County Commissioner. And we got to hear from her and a couple of her staff people. So it continues to be a busy time for all three of us. Chris, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Chairman Vogler. You took a lot of the, took a little bit away with what we've done the past week, because it's really been a very busy week since the last meeting that we had. I think what we have been doing, myself and Commissioner Kennedy have been meeting with the department heads. One day we did 9 of them. We still have a lot more to go. To learn what they do at the courthouse, how they operate, and how they do it. I think it's so important for us. We know these people, but when we get into what they're actually doing and how they do it, it's so important that we learn. And as time goes on, when we have spare time, hopefully in February, we're going to actually go visit these offices and talk to some of the people that work there as well as the department heads. So we look forward to the next week. I know that our schedules are pretty full, and we're going to continue working together.
Thanks, Chris. Mr. Kennedy.
I'm good.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, let's just keep moving.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We'll do just that. New business, new resolutions. We have, what's the number on this one, Vanessa?
26.
26, and we're honored to have the Director of our Mental Health and Developmental Services Office, Mr. Scott Baldwin. Careful, Scott.
I can get up there.
Take your time.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, sir. Welcome. And Mr. Baldwin is one of the department heads with whom my two new colleagues had a meeting, and I heard it went very well. Scott, you have a proposal for us today. Would you mind explaining to us what you'd like for us to consider?
Yeah, so this fiscal year, we currently have a contract with Arise, which is the former women's shelter. And that contract amount was for $30,000 to provide counseling services to females and the juveniles that are at the Lawrence County Jail. So their director, Nicole Annabelle, approached us about a transitional housing program that she's applied for. Part of this is a grant, but part of it was a county support. And this is for women and their children that leave the shelter, finding affordable housing. And it fits well with our dollar streams because everyone that goes through that program receives mental health counseling, through trauma, informed care. So it fits well with our funding stream, and we were happy to give the dollars that we had available to support that. So We're asking for the current contract at $30,000 to be increased to $105,000. And 45 of that will go for one-time renovation costs to a housing unit. And then 30 of that will be annualized to continue to support that. And again, that contract ends June 30th, 2024, this fiscal year.
Scott, thank you. Quick question, if you can answer it. This increase, is there a portion of this increase that comes from the county's general fund?
None of it.
None.
Every bit of this is the county human services block.
Which comes from the Commonwealth.
Comes from the Commonwealth.
Thank you,
So
sir.
there's not $1 that goes towards the.
I appreciate that answer. Mr. Kennedy, any questions for Mr. Ball?
No, just it was a pleasant meeting here last week. I think we got our eyes open to exactly what you do. Great job, your staff. So thank you.
We're very, very fortunate, as I'm
Yes.
sure you found. Thank you, Dan. Mr. Sanada.
Just echo what Commissioner Kennedy said. I thought our meeting last week was very informative to learn what you do, and moving forward, meeting with you further, because I think we come up with some good ideas we want to explore.
Chris, thank you. Unless, Scott, you have anything else to add, I can move ahead and ask for a motion for proposed resolution 26.
I move resolution 26.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kennedy, do you care to second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you so much. Scott, as always,
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks.
have a great day. The next item on our agenda is proposed resolution number 27. This is a budget amendment. Background on this, and Joe, if I missed something, please fill in. A couple of years ago, the legislature passed a law that was signed by the governor that implemented grants known as election integrity grants that the counties can apply for, and obviously we've applied for them. This money comes from the state. We're amending our budget to show that the increase in our revenue from this grant is $293,418. And we are earmarking these dollars as follows for the various expense line items. For payment of election staff, $25,000. For the payment for the staff and polling places that we rent to have our various polling places, $55,000. For the printing of ballots, $40,000. For post-election procedures, $15,000. For processing of voter applications, $10,000. For the preparation, transportation, and storage of voting equipment, $5,000. And for security and transparency costs, $30,000. The balance, $113,418, is earmarked for the election office's contingency line item. Joe, did I miss anything?
No, and when they came out with this grant, it basically replaced all these costs were coming out of the general fund at one point, or a different funding stream. So, the grant's very helpful.
Of course, between Joe and Tim, these are the gentlemen, and Tim's staff, they would have done the application for this grant, so we thank them for that. Chris, do you have any questions? Mr. Kennedy, any questions? No. Okay, thank you. May I then have a motion to approve resolution 27?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 27, 2024.
I will second that.
Thank you both, gentlemen. I'll ask for a roll call.
Commissioner Sinata,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes?
motion carries.
Thank you, Vanessa. We have 6 transfer requests. I'll walk through. Stop me if you want to talk about any of these as I go through them. The first is from the commissioners and the IT department, information technology department. It's a transfer of $1,374.80. From the court's contingency, we are taking $187.95, applying that towards the court's minor equipment line item. And then from the commissioner's contingency, we're taking $1,186.85 towards the commissioner's minor expense line item. These are for either purchases that have happened or will happen, I believe.
Yes, yes.
Okay, any questions on this first one? Thank you. The second one is under the commissioner's jurisdiction, that's administrative. We're asking for a $350 transfer from the commissioner's contingency into the line item of commissioner's postage. And if I'm not mistaken, the price of the stamp just went up yesterday. Again. The next request is from Mental Health Developmental Services. It's asking for a $25,000 transfer from within their budget from their mental health community services line item into that of maintenance and repairs. Next, also from Mental Health and Developmental Services, a $400 transfer from their contingency line item into the line item of subscriptions and books. And then Juvenile Probation is asking for a $1,250 transfer from their contingency line item into that of office equipment. Gentlemen, do you have any questions on any of these? If you don't, I can take a motion then to approve them as approved if you'd like.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Vanessa. Next on the agenda under ordinances, this is proposed ordinance number 1 of 2024, which would rescind ordinance number 4 of 2020. I'll read it into the record. Notice is hereby given that at its January 23, 2024 public meeting, the Lawrence County Commissioners will discuss ordinance number 1 of 2024, which would rescind ordinance number 4 of 2020, which implemented a fee for local use as provided by the Pennsylvania statute 75 CS 1935, allowing a county in its discretion to impose a county fee of $5 for each non-exempt vehicle registered to an address located within its borders. A complete copy of the proposed ordinance is available at the Lawrence County Government Center, in the office of the commissioners, and also at the Lawrence County Law Library between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Any comments regarding this proposed ordinance shall be sent to the chairman of the Lawrence County Commissioners at the Government Center, 430 Court Street, Newcastle, PA 16101, prior to January 30, 2023, when the final passage is anticipated. This is a legal ad that appeared on, actually it says here Friday of January 19th. And I will note we had a considerable number of comments that were registered today, and they of course will be part of the record as it relates to this proposed ordinance. What has to happen today is a vote to introduce and then table this proposed ordinance. We will not be voting to approve it today. That could happen possibly next Tuesday. So that being said, I will open it up to see if there is a motion to introduce and then table this ordinance.
I move that we make the motion to introduce and table this motion until next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Is there a second? I will offer the second. Normally, motions to table generally don't allow for conversation or discussion. I'm going to waive that rule just to see if my colleagues have anything else they'd like to say. Dan, anything?
I think I said what I needed to say.
I'm sorry?
I think I said what I needed to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sonata? Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sinata?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
No.
Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Announcements, the commissioners will hold their next public meeting a week from today, January 30, 2024, 10 a.m. in this room. It is open to the public. I did talk briefly with Amy McKinney, our planning director. You might recall that in January, they did not have a meeting of the Planning Commission. She did tell me, though, that in February, they do anticipate they've got 1 or 2 items that the commission needs to consider. So they will be meeting, although I think it's the second Wednesday of the month. I hope I'm correct about that. But we'll have that formal announcement next week. Closing public comment. Mr. or Mrs. Burchett, anything? Thank you. Debbie?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And I do have your packet here, Debbie. Closing comments from my colleagues. Mr. Kennedy, anything? Okay, thank you, sir. And Mr. Sonata? Thank you very much. Vanessa or Joe, anything maybe we've overlooked? Okay, thank you. That being said, may I please have an adjournment motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Thank you both. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. And Joe, would you mind?
Absolutely.
Thank you all for being here. Is that the thing Janet gave me?
Participating in today's hearing. Mr. Burchett of Tennessee, Ms. Luna of Florida, Mr. Getz of Florida, Mr. Burleson of Missouri, Mrs. Ocasio-Cortez of New York, and Mr. Ogles of Tennessee. Without objection, so ordered. For today's subcommittee hearing, both the chair and ranking member will have 10 minutes for opening remarks. We may both be giving some of those minutes to other members of our party. I'm now going to recognize myself for 10 minutes. I'm actually going to try to get out of here in about 4, and then we'll give it to some of my friends over here. Good morning and welcome to the most exciting subcommittee in Congress this week, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs, for discussion of unidentified anomalous phenomenon. I'd like to thank the brave military pilots and personnel, such as the witnesses on the panel today, for sharing their stories on how they have engaged UAPs, which has brought attention to this matter. Curiosity and speculation from all walks of life have generated interest in studying what UAPs are and what threats they may pose. I will say that when I was younger in school, I read a book, a 1966 book called Flying Saucers, Serious Business, and for a while, when I was a little bit younger, I thought it was the most important issue out there. The lack of transparency regarding UAPs, which was one of the themes of that book, in any event, it's led to interest in studying what UAPs are and what threats they pose. The lack of transparency regarding UAPs has fueled wild speculation and debate for decades, eroding public trust in the very institutions that are meant to serve and protect them, as is evidenced by the large number of people we have here. I also want to point out in 1966, President Gerald Ford claimed to have seen a UFO, and in 1969 in Georgia, Jimmy Carter claimed to have seen a UFO. So this has led Congress to establish entities to examine UAPs. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2022 established the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, to conduct or to coordinate efforts across the Department of Defense and other federal agencies to detect, identify, and investigate UAPs. However, AARO's budget remains classified, prohibiting meaningful oversight from Congress. In addition to AARO's efforts, NASA is leading an independent study on UAPs that will identify how UAP data is gathered from both civilian and government entities that can be analyzed to shed light on the topic. However, despite these offices being established, there lies a pressing demand for government transparency and accountability that cannot be overlooked, and that's been a problem that's been around for 50 years. The Biden administration handling of the Chinese spy balloon that violated U.S. airspace is one example how the government is not prepared for these. The Biden administration's description of events has shown that the government continues not to be forthright. Between the Chinese balloon being shot down and 2 UAPs subsequently shot down following the event earlier this year, the U.S. government spent $1.5 million in taxpayer dollars on missiles, yet we have seen little clarity from the Biden administration. We must demand transparency from the Department of Defense, our intelligence community, and our defense industry on the UAP work. We're going to ask some questions about that today. Congress recognizes the subject of UAPs as multifaceted and requires a careful, data-driven approach. Today, we'll see clarity from these witnesses' testimonies, or we'll seek clarity as to what can be done to improve reporting for military and civilians and remain committed to objective inquiry. Congress should work to ensure that knowledge is not driven by fear. Today, we are not just debating the existence of UAPs, we are deliberating on the principles that define our republic, which is a commitment to transparency and accountability. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about ways we can improve government efficiency and openness when it comes to UAPs. I thank each of you for your presence here today and for your dedication to safeguarding the interests of the American people. I look forward to your testimony. Now I'm going to turn it over for 2.5 or 3 minutes to Representative Burchett from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody for making this happen today, and I want to remind everybody this is a nonpartisan issue. This has nothing to do with party politics. I think the cover-up goes a lot deeper than that. I also want to thank my colleagues, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, sitting beside me here, Jared Moskowitz, my friend across the aisle, has an incredible mind, and I'm anxious to hear his questions, my buddy Eric Burleson, and it's not in my notes here, but Matt Gates. If it hadn't been for Matt Gates, myself, him, and Luna would still be down at Eglin Air Force Base trying to get some answers. He's got an incredible legal mind. Also, I know I saw it in the crowd there, George Knapp, my buddy Jeremy Corbell. They're not witnesses, but they've provided some statements on this subject, and I seek unanimous consent to enter those statements into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
Also, would like to enter in, I understand now that this is unclassified and it's public record, but as we all know, that's sometimes difficult for the public to get a hold of. A report, Defense Intelligence Reference Documents, Advanced Space Propulsion Based on Vacuum, Space-Time Metric Engineering, some light reading for some of our members.
Without objection.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Knapp wrote, since 1969, the position of our military has been that UFOs pose no threat to national security and are not worthy of further study. I'd say that's the biggest understatement of the decade. And he also goes on to talk about the dismissive attitude. It's at odds with what was revealed in documents, reports, and internal memos. And Mr. Cabral says, as he writes these words, the UFO is emerging as a major topic of global importance. I can state that as a fact. Out there, I met a fellow who came in here all the way from Denmark to be here for this meeting. So this is huge. This is worldwide. I think we suspect what's going on, but I'd also like to thank the members of Congress who have supported our efforts to make this hearing happen. Some have even confided to me that they've had UFO sightings of their own. Those members, of course, some of them wish to remain anonymous, and I'll keep it that way. But also, finally, I'd like to thank these 3 brave witnesses here. They took an oath. They took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and dadgummit, they're doing it. And we owe them a debt of gratitude. Y'all quit clapping. You're cutting in on my time. Just kidding. These folks, they've got nothing to gain from this, and I think you're going to find out that they've endured quite a few slings and arrows. We need to remember them in our prayers and their families. And I'm thankful to them for their honest testimonies. They have done interviews and appeared in documentaries like Accidental Truth to get their stories out there, and now they are all here to testify under oath for Congress. It's been so difficult to get here today. I've said, you know, in the Baptist church, we'd say that the devil's in our way. And the devil has been in our way through this thing. We've run into roadblocks from members, from the intelligence community, the Pentagon. I proposed legislation to go in the FAA reauthorization that just said if an airline pilot has a sighting, that when he makes that report to the FAA, that it would come to Congress. But I was told that the intelligence community did not like that, and the amendment was not even heard in committee. I think it's time for this country to take back our country. We need to tell the folks at the Pentagon they work for us. Dadgummit, we don't work for them. And that's exactly the point. This is an issue of government transparency. We can't trust a government that does not trust its people. We're not bringing little green men or flying saucers into the hearing. Sorry to disappoint about half y'all. We're just going to get to the facts. We're going to uncover the cover-up, and I hope this is just the beginning of many more hearings and more people coming forward about this. And I yield back the remainder of my time. I think, is it to Representative Luna, Mr. Chairman, or is that?
Yeah, we'll call Ms. Luna for her statement.
The circumstances surrounding UAPs has captivated the attention of the American people for decades, ingrained in even the minds of our nation's leaders from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump, Marco Rubio to Chuck Schumer, John Radcliffe to National Security Council officials. Yet from Roswell, New Mexico to the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, the sightings of UAPs have rarely been explained by the people who have firsthand accounts of these situations. This is largely due to the lack of transparency by our own government and the failure of our elected leaders to make good on their promises to release explanations and footage and mountains of overclassified documents that continue to be hidden from the American people. This isn't just how I feel. In fact, the American people largely believe that the government has actively covered up the truth about UAPs. One poll in particular found that 68% of Americans believe that the government is hiding information about UAPs and not being honest about what we know about them. And from my personal experience, I believe the same thing. Another poll found that nearly half Americans believe that the federal government is doing a very bad or somewhat bad job of dealing with reports of UFO sightings. As Representative Burchett just referenced on the FAA bill that just went through, you can tell that that's exactly happening. Considering the thousands of testimonies and videos taken on people's phones and eyewitnesses' accounts made by credible witnesses such as doctors, pilots, scientists, and active duty service members, it is unacceptable to continue to gaslight Americans into thinking that this is not happening or that the potential of intelligent life forms exists other than humans. Even more alarming is the fact that these eyewitnesses are many times service members and have no assurance that their lives will not be negatively impacted or even harmed by their experiences. In being an active duty service member working on an airfield, I've had conversations with many pilots where they were in fear of coming forward for retribution and or being taken off flight status. How do we know this? Because the government has said nothing to assure us otherwise. They have also did nothing to calm the concerns of over 20% of Americans who have reported to have seen UFOs or UAPs. We are simply told not to question the government and that the government has it under control. Today is the first hearing of its kind where we will attempt to get down to the bottom of what is actually happening with UAPs. But we will hear from people who have had personal sightings rather than Pentagon bureaucrats who have always been sent to stonewall our investigations. Just so that the press knows and the people know, we were even denied access to a classified briefing in a SCIF prior to this hearing due to the amount of hoops that we had to jump through to grant temporary clearance to witness Grush, who has knowledge of classified information. It is time to have an open-minded discussion on this topic, to hear the evidence and understand the magnitude of what this means, not just for our nation, but for humanity. Thank you, Chairman. I yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank you and Mr. Burchett for bringing this topic to my attention. Now we'll recognize National Security Subcommittee Ranking Member Garcia for 10 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank first our witnesses for joining us today. I want to begin by thanking you all for your service to our country and for sharing your voices today and your courage to be here as well. To Mr. Graves, particularly grateful to you to spend some time that we